Our topic is masonry. Masonry started even during the prehistoric period, no? So, but in the different form. So masonry is the art of craft of building or fabricating with stone, clay, brick, or concrete block. It is one of the oldest trade or skill trade. It dates back to the use of sun-baked clay, brick, more than 6,000 years ago. Masonry construction helped build some notable structures, including the Egyptian pyramids, the Roman Colosseum, the Taj Mahal, and the Great Wall of China. So it was even used by the cavemen, but they don't know the term that is being the term that will be used on what they are doing. So they are piling stones so that they can live under the stones, no? So those are masonry. It's a crude form of masonry, but it is the use of stone as a structure or shelter was being done, no, during that time. But during the Egyptian period, there were structures that was built by using limestone and granite. So the early days of masonry construction, the art of masonry began spontaneously in the creation of walls from stone or pieces of cake, mud. The first mortar was just mud smeared in between pieces of stone to add stability. Over time, brick and later limestone were introduced in masonry construction. So the first type of masonry construction was mud and stone. No, they used the mud as the mortar. So the stone should be to be able to attain the stable concrete, stable stone and mud connection. No? So during those time, wala pa kasing mortar. So they used the mud or the putik, no, as a material, binding material. And during that time, during the early, before 6,000, before the time of the Egyptians, so they used the mud, no, and the stone as temporary shelter or structures, no. During the Egyptian period, no, as long as 2,600 BC, the Egyptians were using basic masonry to build one of the most impressive structures ever created. They created the pyramids by stacking large pieces of limestone. Granite was used to construct the roofs and walls of the burial chambers. Gypsum and rubber were used to fill in the gaps to stabilize the structure despite having most no binding properties. Egyptians workmen likely used copper chisels, drills, and saws to cut the limestone. So there is what you call a boom in building structures, no, during the Egyptian period. No? So they use the limestone or granite. No? They quarry it from a mountain, then they cut it to specific sizes, then they put it on top of each other, and they use what you call a gypsum and rubber, no, as binders, no. But sometimes they use a dry type of construction. They don't use any adhesives, no, or any mortar or limestone, no. So sometimes they use what you call this mud, no, as part of the binding mortars. So as you can see in the Temple of Isis and the Philae Temple, those are structures that are using limestone as the material for cut limestone as material for the building. No, so the Egyptian masonries were the one who cut the limestone and then put it on top of each other. No, so there are several what you call this theories, no, regarding how they built it. No, but analyze, you know, there were no exact engineering or exact science, no, during that time that will help them build those structures, but they certainly did a good job, no. During this period, during this 20th century, no, it will be difficult for us to build those structures using no machines. No, we need machines to do those structures, but during that time there were no machines, no, to help them build those structures. So, in the Middle Ages or the medieval times, stone was frequently used to build castles, bridges, cathedrals, and other structures that were designed to stand the test of time. Stone gave masons an opportunity to build much higher and support much heavier structures. Castles were sometimes built with a combination of masonry stone, limestone plaster, and provided a bright white, yellow color. White and yellow color. So as you can see, during the Middle Ages, there were certain technologies available, limited technologies available, but there are craftsmen, skilled craftsmen that were trained to do this type of masonry works during the Middle Ages. Unlike the Egyptian, we have no specific data regarding how they did it, but during the Middle Ages, there are certain writings or write-ups or books that we can search on how they built those castles. But the cathedrals are now still standing. We can still see those cathedrals and castles, but some of them are deteriorated because of exposure to weather, but some are now being restored, like in our country, the Philippines, we restore old churches that were built during the Spanish period. So we restored the churches that are made of material that is available, in the surrounding or the community or this region, and majority of material that were used in our churches is what you call the what type of stone that is? That is the adobe, adobe stone. So if you will see the church in Iloilo, they use egg, and eggshells and egg white as material, as binding material combined to limestone to make plastering, to plaster the churches. So masonry during the Industrial Revolution, in America and Europe, machines were developed that made masonry much easier. That these technological advances made it simple to quarry, transport material, and mold bricks. For the first time, sophisticated mathematics were used to create more elaborate structures. Buildings of this era were noted for having greater strength and durability. So as you can see, during that time, we now have the machines, that can help the craftsmen or the masons to build the buildings. And schools are open to teach people to design structures, to use the proper material. But there is also limitation during the industrial period, Industrial Revolution. Limitation because of the availability of material and technology, compared to our era. But there also came a time that skyscrapers were built, and skyscrapers, the art of masonry somewhat lost in its luster in the late 19th century. After metal frames replaced stone-bearing walls in very tall buildings in major cities. However, the development of the concrete block used in such structures can be traced back to brick construction. Concrete block is frequently used today in construction because of it's much cheaper than cut stone and requires less labor than laying brick. So during the skyscraper era, when late 19th century, buildings were also built in the Philippines. A lot of our buildings were built during the early 19th and the late 19th century. Those buildings are now being seen around Manila area, and some are Iloilo, some are in areas like the old cities of the Philippines, and in areas like New York and Chicago, a lot of buildings skyscraper buildings was erected. And this building shown in the slide is the Empire State Buildings. No? So it is a building using metal as frame, no, combined with concrete hollow blocks. So the use of solid or quarried stone was replaced by the use of metal frames. Okay, instead of using quarried stone, putting one atop of each other, they use now the metal frame. So it created a higher building. You know? So this was the birth of the skyscraper. So masonry structures from individuals unit laid in the bound together by the mortar. The term masonry can also refer to the units themselves. The common materials of masonry constructions are brick, stone, marble, granite, limestone, cast stone, hollow concrete block, reinforced brick masonry, glass blocks, stucco, tiles, and others. No? So as you can see in the illustrations, you can see the use of stone, you can see the use of bricks, and you can see the use of hollow blocks. No? So these are the different materials that you can use in masonry construction. So masonry is commonly used for walls of buildings, retaining walls, and monuments. Bricks and concrete blocks are the most common types of masonry in use in industrial nations and may be either weight-bearing or a veneer. Concrete blocks, especially those with hollow cores, offer various possibilities of masonry construction. This generally provides great compressive strength and are best suited to structures with light transverse loading when the cores remain unfilled. Filling some or all of the cores with concrete or concrete with steel reinforcements, typically rebars, offer much greater tensile and lateral strengths to the structure. So there is also an evolution on the use of masonry in construction, from using stone, crude stone, to the recent concrete hollow blocks. No? But now we have the prefabricated concretes. No? And those prefabricated concretes are available in different size and shapes. And some are being installed using the masonry principle. Okay? So, solid walls, masonry units laid close together with all joints filled solidly with mortar. Solid walls are structurally bonded by metal ties, masonry headers, or by a joint reinforcement, where solid masonry walls are used. Insulation and mechanical equipments are often installed with furred space on the interior side of the wall. Below-grade insulation is often placed on the exterior side of the wall. So the masonry construction created the solid wall. Okay, this solid wall is the exterior and the interior part of the building. If the veneered wall, masonry is used as this type of masonry is used as a facing material in case the masonry does not act structurally. It serves to perform a weather barrier and as a finish material. Insulation and mechanical equipment is normally located between the studs. No? So the veneer is what we call now the tiles, diba? So it is a surface or the facing material, interior or exterior of the masonry. Okay, so that is the masonry veneered wall. Okay, so this veneered wall acts as a exterior finish, at the same time protects the solid walls. Okay, so but it doesn't have the structural characteristic to stand on itself. It needs a wall, no, to be attached on. So cavity walls is composed of two weights, or either solid or hollow masonry, separated by a continuous airspace and bonded together with metal ties or joint reinforcement. The cavity offers important advantages in areas of severe exposure. The continuous air is provided insulation value and a place where additional insulation may be installed. So the continuous airspace acts as a barrier to moisture penetration. In cavity walls, insulation and mechanical equipment are often installed within the cavity or within the first space on the interior of the wall. So this cavity wall, no, is two solid walls with a space in between them. So that is what you call a cavity wall. So the space in between two solid walls is the cavity where you put the electrical, plumbing, mechanical works, and it also acts as a insulation where you can put what moisture protection, heat protection, and other utilities. No, you can use that cavity. And mortar act as a cementing material that binds individual masonry units together to act as a homogeneous mass. Common mortar used in brick masonry are cement mortar, lime mortar, cement lime mortar, lime surkey mortar, and mud mortar. Okay, so these are the different types of mortar that you can use, no, in binding stones or masonries. So brick masonry is made of clay or shale form, no, dried and fired into manufacturing process. These variations are addressed by a durable ceramic product. When bricks are laid in mortar in a proper systematic manner, they form a homogeneous mass which can withstand forces without disintegration. This mass of structure so made by the use of bricks is called brick masonry or simply brickwork. Bricks are uniform of sizes and shape, light and weight, durable, fire-resistant, have high resale value, low maintenance cost, and are easily available in plain areas. Brick masonry is commonly used for construction of ordinary as well as important buildings in place. So these are samples of bricks. No? So as you can see, these brick houses, no, they have certain patterns on how they install the bricks. Okay, so these bricks are installed on top of each other, and also they use the masonry in the Great Wall of China. Okay, these are made of natural stone, no? Compared to bricks, which is fire bricks, which is a clay that is formed to form a brick. In the Great Wall of China, these are natural stones. This is also a brick, no? This is a brick, which is a fire brick, and it has a design, no? The design was created using different methods on how to lay bricks. No, we will discuss these methods later. Okay, so the brick position, no? We will now go into what are the different positions of the bricks. If you will lay the brick, no, on its flat side, the stretcher, this is called the stretcher. If you will lay the end of the brick, if it will lay flat, that's called the header. No? If it's standing up and showing the shorter side or the shorter area, it's the soldier. If it will show the bigger flat area, it's the shiner. Tapos pag pinakita, it's the edge, no, turned around or turned on the other side, it's the roll-up. And if the shiner is on the vertical standing position, it's a sailor. Okay? So as you can see, the sailor and the soldier, no, it's all vertical, right? The stretcher and the shiner, it's all horizontal. Okay? And the header, it shows it's horizontal, but it shows the ends of the brick. Okay? So these are the different positions of. It's important, no, because you will see all of these positions on the different samples on how they lay down the bricks. So this is another section that shows the positions of the brick in terms of laying it on a wall. So as you can see, the brick on top of a wall is called the header. The brick laid horizontal and the face of the brick on top, it's called the width, no, or the width. And the connection of the two bricks, it's called a collar joint. And the brick that is connection of the brick that is vertical, that is the vertical or the head joint. Now, the different terminologies, no, that is being used for this brick laying, no, can be seen also on different brick layout later, no. So this is as you can see, this is the head joint, the vertical connection of the mortar, that's called the head joint. The horizontal connection of the mortar, that is the bed joint. And the layers of bricks is called the cores, no? So each layer of the brick is called a cores or horizontal layer of brick. Okay, so this is also what you call the stretcher, that is the face of the brick, no? And the header, that is the bands two width together, no? The header. It can also, this is the width, no? And this is the header, as you can see. So the roll-up, no, that is laid on the face and the end visible. This is the roll-up. It's also here. Okay, that is the roll-up. This is the header. No? So these are all different positionings, no, terminologies in positioning of the bricks. Okay, bands is the arrangements of bricks or stones in its course, so as to ensure the greatest possible interlocking and to avoid the continuity of vertical joints in two successive courses, both on the face and in the body of a wall. No? So this is to avoid the vertical joints, no? Because the bricks, no, usually doesn't have reinforcement, so they avoid the vertical joints to be connected above each other. So it will, because that will fail, no, that will weaken the wall. No? So a band is provided to achieve the following objectives. The primary objective is providing a band is to break the continuity of the vertical joints in successive course, both in the length and thickness of the masonry structure. This is to avoid the vertical, no, the vertical connections to meet each other. So the structure will act as a bounded mass and its load to be transmitted uniformly to its foundation. To ensure longitudinal and lateral strength of the structure, it is also used to provide pleasing appearance by laying bricks symmetrically and to do masonry work quickly by engaging more mason on a job at a time. So this will make it faster, no? If you will do it by designs or by patterns, no? So they can repeat the patterns on other sides and it will certainly meet, no? Because of the regularity of the joints, okay, or the design of the joints. So this is the brick bands, no? On the left side is the this is a cavity veneer wall. So this is the running band and the stuck band. So this is a way to install veneer, no? The veneer or the facing of a thin brick facing, no, surface facing. So this is what you call the cavity wall, running band, and the stuck band. No? The one on the right side is the stuck band, and the one on the left side is the running band. So rules to get a good brick band. Amount of lap should be minimum 1/4 brick along the length of the wall and 1/2 brick across the thickness of the wall. Brick should be uniform in size to get a uniform lap, and stretcher should be in facing. Use of brick butts should be discouraged except under special circumstances, and vertical joints in the alternate courses should be along same perpend. So these are the different brick joints. No? You can see the concave, the V joint or the V, the weather, the grapevine, extruded, beaded, struck, rake, and flush. So these are the connections, no, or the mortar finishes, no, in between two bricks. So as you can see, this is the concave joint. No? This is the concave joint. The concave joint is this is the concave joint. No? It is the most common joint that is used as it is also known as the best joint for preventing water penetration. Tooling works the mortar tight into the joints, which produces better weather resistance. So there is a specific tool that you need to use to create a concave joint. So this is the tool for the V joint. You can see that this is the tool that is being used to scrape the excess mortar in between two bricks, and it creates a V form. The V joint does not protect from water as well as the concave joint. So the concave joint is the best for exterior because of the geometry. It is not tooled correctly, water can accumulate in the joint. Similar to the concave joint, tooling works and mortar tight and can help prevent water penetration if done correctly. So you need a certain or a specific type of tool to create those joints. The V joint. This is the rake joint. The rake joint is another joint not recommended for exterior use because of the ledge or its ledge. It may allow water, snow, ice to sit on top of the brick due to the fact that the mortar sits back from the face of the brick. There is less cover face between the face of the mortar and the joint and top of the brick unit where the cores exist. Saturated mortar joints can allow water to enter the cores and penetrate through the wall. So in this section, in this brick, as you can see, the brick is like this one, and then there is what you call another mortar, and there is another brick, and the mortar is here. This is the mortar. Okay, so there may be another brick on this side. There may be another brick on this side, and there is mortar also on this side. Okay, but the problem is with this type of brick layout, water can accumulate on this side. Water can accumulate, and there will be penetration of water or seepage. So this type of the rake joint is not recommended for exterior brickworks. Okay. Okay, so this is a sample of a brick, using concave design. So types of bands, we have the stretcher band, the English band, the Flemish band, the raking band, English garden wall band, common American band, Flemish garden wall band, and running band, and the herringbone band. So this is the stretcher band, as you can see. This is the easiest band to lay and minimize the amount of cutting required. Originally used of single brick walls, now called the 1.5 brick walls. It became the obvious choice for cavity walls and less cutting was required. So this is a more economical to use, and this is more practical to use because there is less waste of tiles or band, or bricks. So it is alternate. The position of the brick is alternate. The connection of the brick is alternate, as you can see. But the sizes of the bricks are all the same. So this is the English band. The difference is the perpendicular and the parallel. As you can see, this is the parallel and this is the perpendicular. So it's an alternate. Parallel, perpendicular, parallel, perpendicular. This is an alternate. This is called the English band. Okay. So as you can see in the exterior, this is the parallel and this is the perpendicular band, as you can see. So this is the English band. So there is also what you call the Flemish band. The alternate bricks are placed at the header and the stretcher in every course. Each header is placed centrally between the stretcher immediately above and below. It is as strong as the English band at one brick thick can be successfully applied in the cavity wall. As you can see, there is also an alternate, but as you can see, there is one, and then there is two, perpendicular, 1 parallel, 2 perpendicular, no? So this is called the Flemish band. So the raking band, there is what you call the herringbone design, no? And diagonal bands can be effective within exposed frame construction or contained within the restraining brick courses. Now, as you can see in the previous slide that I showed, the design of the building using these different types of methods to create to use the methods that is being used for a bricklaying. So this is the English garden wall band. No? Every 4th and 6th course, no, there is a header course being inserted at every 4th and 6th course. So this is the design, no, that you will see if you use an English garden wall band. Okay? This is the way it will be laid out, and this is the design. The common American band, no, and the Flemish garden wall band. Okay? And this is the running band, similar to the common American band, except the stretchers, except on the 8th row of the headers. No? So the common American band, there is every 8th row, there is a change of direction of the brick. So that will be the common American band. But the running band, no, consists of all stretchers, no header. There is no header. It's used in this band. So ties, metal ties are used cavity wall construction and veneer wall bricks. No? This is what we usually see, the running band. This is the herringbone band. It's purely decorative band. It is used in floor and walls and panels. The raking band, herringbone and diagonal bands can be effective within exposed frame construction and contained within the straining brick courses. Now we go to the stone masonry. No? Rock that is removed from its natural site and generally cut or dressed and then finished for building purposes is called stone masonry. And the art of building the structure with stones as construction unit is called stone masonry. So if you will quarry a stone and then you cut it on a specific size or not cut it on a specific size, it's called a stone masonry. No? So we have the different type of stone masonry. We have the rubble masonry and the ashlar masonry. The rubble masonry, the stone masonry in which either undressed or roughly dressed stone are laid in is called rubble. This is in this masonry, the joints and mortar are not uniform in thickness. Okay, so we have different types of rubble masonry. We have the uncoarse rubble masonry, the coarse rubble masonry, built to regular coarse masonry, polygonal rubble masonry, and the flint rubble masonry and the dry rubble masonry. So the uncoarse random rubble masonry is the random rubble masonry in which all stones are laid without forming courses is known the uncoarse random rubble masonry. This masonry is the cheapest and the roughest type of masonry. The stone is to be used in this masonry are different size and shape. No? It consists of different size and shape of stone. Larger stones are used at the corners and the jambs to increase their strength. In general, stones are laid with its longer axis roughly horizontal and along the length of the wall. So the longest axis is horizontal. And the only shaping of the stone that is executed is the removal of the inconvenient corners or projections with the hammer. If there are corners or irregular corners, it will be trimmed by using a hammer. This type of masonry is used for constructing walls of low height in case of ordinary buildings. So this is the borders, the banders are stone which reach beyond the middle of the wall from each other to overlap in the center. And the trues are stones which extend in the full thickness of the wall. So the trues should not be used as external wall as moisture may be conducted through them and cause dampness in the internal face. Okay, so this is a sample of a uncoarse random rubble masonry. So as you can see, no, the shapes or size of the stones are not even. They are not all the same. They are they have rough edges, they are randomly arranged. Okay, so that is why it's called random rubble masonry. The coarse rubble masonry, the stones are laid in layers of equal height. No, so there is now a what you call regularity. No, if the smaller stones are encountered, then 2 or 3 stones are stacked one above the other to obtain the height of the course in which is placed. Such stones are placed in intermediate courses and avoided at corners, bedding, and other critical location. So you can see now the horizontal lines, no, in this coarse rubble masonry. No? There is a recognizable horizontal line, no, which they try to attain, no, to maintain and attain, no, using combining smaller and big stone and then creating a flat, no, horizontal line, no, for another layer to be installed. Okay, so as you can see in this drawing, there is what you call a horizontal line. Okay, and this, from this area, from this line to this line, they put smaller stone, medium-sized stone, and a small stone to create the specific height that they want. So there is what you call a horizontal, no, layering of the rubbles. Now we have the coarse rubble masonry. The coarse square rubble masonry. In this type of masonry, the stones are chiseled into the almost square shape and arranged in courses. This chiseled dressed square stone pieces is arranged in the facing while the backing constitutes an coarse random rubble masonry. So in this type of coarse square rubble masonry, you can see now that the joints or the connections are even. No? Even the horizontal and vertical lines, no, you can see that they have enough straightness, no, to create a square, no, shape. So the regular coarse masonry, no, refers to the type of masonry as brought to coarse. In this type of masonry, stones of uniform height are laid in horizontal layers not less than 130 millimeter in height. The stone beds are hammered, chiseled, dressed to the at least 10 centimeter depth from face to facilitate proper bonding. The vertical joints in the consecutive courses should not be allowed to coincide. Construction patterns of this type of wall resembles that of uncoarse random rubble masonry. The major difference is that the masonry is roughly leveled up to the course of irregular intervals, unlike the uncoarse random rubble masonry where the stone pieces are not laid in courses. The intervals of this masonry are decided on the basis of locality and the type of stone used. This interval is generally between 300 to 900 millimeter. Now we have the polygonal rubble masonry. In this type of masonry, the stones are roughly hammered, pitched into regular polygonal shapes. The stone used are mostly without prominent stratification. These stones are embedded in the facing to show the irregularity of the face joint in all directions for aesthetic appeal. So this is the polygonal, no? Using rubbles that are hammered into a regular polygonal shape. The flint rubble masonry. Now, this type of masonry is generally put into use where flint or cobbles are available in abundance. These stones, the cobbles are stones that are shaped to 8 to 15 centimeter thick and 15 to 30 centimeter long. These stones are hard but brittle. No? They are laid in facing either coarse or uncoarse. The brittleness of the stone reduces the strength of the masonry, which is supplemented by laying course of thin stone bricks at 1 to 2 meter interval in vertical direction. So this is the dry rubble masonry. It is constructed in the form of random rubble masonry without mortar. No? This is achieved by filling up the hollow space around the stone placed by smaller stones, and so on until the stones are tightly packed. This is the cheaper and the lowest cost of mortar is nullified, but at the same time, skilled manpower is required to manage the stone alone without mortar. The height of the stone pieces should be no greater than 6 meters, and if it is greater than 3 meters, 3 adjacent cores are laid at 3-meter interval in a square rubble masonry. So you need a square rubble masonry at interval of 3 meters to make it approximately up to 6 meters. Okay, so this is what you call a dry rubble. So you need a skilled workers to do this, no? Because of the you need to attain a compact, no, laying of masonry, no? Because this is you will not use mortar for this type of masonry work, dry rubble masonry. Now we go to ashlar masonry. The stone masonry is in which finely dressed stone are laid in cement or lime mortar is known as ashlar. So these are using fine, no, finely dressed stone. In this masonry, all of the joints are regular, thin, and uniform thickness. This type of masonry is costly in construction as involves heavy cost of dressing the stone. This masonry is used for heavy structures like arcs, architectural buildings, high piers, abutments, and bridges. So this is called ashlar masonry, in which the stones are finely dressed, no? Finely cut. So we have different type of ashlar masonry. We have the ashlar rough tooled masonry, ashlar fine tooled masonry, ashlar facing, coarse ashlar masonry, chamfered ashlar masonry, and the random ashlar masonry. So ashlar rough tooled masonry, this type of ashlar masonry in which the beds and the sides are finely chiseled, dressed but rough tooling. The exposed face is dressed with rough exposed finish. This is done by dressing. So after you install the stone, you chisel it to perfection. Okay. This is the ashlar fine tooled masonry. This finest type of ashlar masonry is ashlar fine tooled masonry, and to remove all unevenness in the bed joints, the face of the stones are chiseled, dressed, and joint obtained perfectly horizontal, vertical. There are thin mortar joints and give a very close and packed finish in this type. This is the ashlar facing to give the building an exposed and good aesthetics. This type of ashlar masonry is used, and the faces are exposed stones and chamfered and rough tooled. No? So this is ashlar facing. No, if we say it's ashlar, it is finely tooled. No, so it's not a irregular shape. No, it's finely tooled. Okay, so coarse ashlar masonry, in this type, the stones are laid in such a way that the joints formed by the lower layer and covered in uniform sizes. Stone as a use an alternative vertical joints which strengthen the wall. The chamfered ashlar masonry is the special type of ashlar masonry in which at an angle 45 degrees to a depth of 25 millimeter, the strip provided around the perimeter of the exposed face is chamfered. As you can see, the edges are chamfered. No? This is the chamfered ashlar masonry. So the random ashlar masonry for construction of the masonry skilled and knowledgeable workers are required in this type of masonry. The stone block arrangement doesn't have any specific placement rule and has a general course of alignment. For strong bonding, variation of height and length have to be proportional to this overall structure.